Jam Vishnupada Pranamaham Saparira Chakcharya Ashtada Satta Shri Srimat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Charya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupada Pranamaham Saparira Chakcharya Ashtada Satta Shri Srimat His Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakha Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Govindan Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Chamunamai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasada Distribution Ki Jai. Arama Sankirtan Ki Jai. ISKCON Yotva Gadam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanandi Haribo Haribo. All glories to you, Sambodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to you, Sambodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to you, Sambodhi Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Uditrayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavadi Udamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 9, text number 11. Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hrit Saroja Ase Srutekshita Pato Manu Natat Pumsam Yat Yat Diya Ta Vurugaya Vibhavayanti Tat Tat Vapuhu Pranayase Sat Anugrahaya Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hrit Saroja Ase Sutrekshi Tapato Nanu Natapumsam Yatya Diyata Urugaya Vibhavayanti Tata Vapu Pranayase Sadanugrahaya. Sorry. I just wait, huh? I'll keep going? Okay. Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hrit Saroja Ase Sruteshi Tapato Nanu Natapumsam Yatya Diyata Urugaya Vibhavayanti Tata vapuhu pranayeshe. Tata vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavitarit saroja. Asestute shitapato nanu natapumsam. Yatya diyata urugaya vibhaya yanti. Tata vapu pranaya se sadanugrahaya. Am bhakti yoga paribhavitarit saroja. Am bhakti yoga paribhavitarit saroja. Tata pranaya se sadanugrahaya. Mataji's Ase shite shitapato nanunata pumsam. Yadya diyata urugaya vibhavayanti. Tata vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. Tam bhakti yoga paribhavitari saroja. Ase sutekshita nata punsam. Yatya diyata urugaya vibhavayanti. Tata vapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. Tvam, unto you, bhakti yoga, in devotional service, paribhavita, being 100% engaged, freed of the heart, saroja, on the lotus, ase, you reside, sutta ikshita, seen through the ear, pataha, the path, manu, now, Natha, O my Lord, Pumsam of the devotees, Yat, whichever, Diya, by meditating, Te, Yo, Urugaya, O multi-glorious, Vibhavayanti, they specifically think of, Tata, the very same, Vapuhu, transcendental form, Pranayase, do you manifest, Satanugrahaya, to show your causeless mercy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ear by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of the transcendence in which they always think of you. Purport. The statement here that the Lord manifests Himself before the devotee in the form in which the devotee likes to worship Him indicates that the Lord becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotees, so much so that He manifests His particular form as the devotee demands. This demand of the devotee is satisfied by the Lord because He is pliable in terms of the transcendental loving service of the devotee. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:11. Yeyatamam prapatyante tvam sataiva bhajamyaham. We should note, however, that the Lord is never the order supplier of the devotee. Here in this verse, it is particularly mentioned, Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita. This indicates the efficiency achieved through execution of matured devotional service, or Prema, love of Godhead. This state of Prema is achieved by the gradual process of development from faith to love. On faith, one associates with bona fide devotees, and by such association, one can become engaged in bona fide devotional service, which includes proper initiation and the execution of the primary devotional duty prescribed in the revealed scriptures. This is clearly indicated herein by the words Sruktekshita. The Sruktekshita path is to hear from bona fide devotees who are conversant with Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiment. By this bona fide hearing process, the neophyte devotee becomes cleansed of all material rubbish, and thus he becomes attached to one of the many transcendental forms of the Lord, as described in the Vedas. This attachment of the devotee to a particular form of the Lord is due to natural inclination. Each and every living entity is originally attached to a particular type of transcendental service because he is eternally the servitor of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya says that the living entity is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Therefore, every living entity has a particular type of service relationship with the Lord eternally. This particular attachment is invoked by practice of regulative devotional service to the Lord, and thus the devotee becomes attached to the eternal form of the Lord, exactly like the one who is already eternally attached. This attachment for a particular form of the Lord is called Swarupa Siddhi. The Lord sits on the lotus heart of the devotee in eternal form. The pure devotee desires, and as the Lord does not part from the devotee, as confirmed in the previous verse. The Lord, however, does not disclose himself to a casual or unauthentic worshipper to be exploited. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham praksha savasya yogamaya samarvita. Rather, by yogamaya, the Lord remains concealed to the non-devotees or casual devotees who are serving the sense gratification. The Lord is never visible to the pseudo-devotees who worship the demigods in charge of universal affairs. The conclusion is that the Lord cannot become the order supplier of a pseudo-devotee, but he is always prepared to respond to the desires of a pure devotee, unconditional devotee, who is free from all tinge of material infection. Om Jnana Timinandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshu Umnitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtan Stapitan Yena Bhutale Swayanupakada Mahyan Tadati Swam Padanti Kam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Rakunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatuta Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Radita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinna Bandhu Chagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindava Nishwari Rishabhanu Sudhare Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakau Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishvanebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hrit Saroja Ase Strutekshita Pato Manu Nata Pumsa Yadya Diyata Urugaya Vibha Vayanti Tatat Vapu Pranayase Sadhu Nugrahaya. Translation again. Oh my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he said that the statement here that the Lord manifests himself before the devotee in the form in which the devotee likes to worship him indicates that the Lord becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotee. So much so that he manifests his particular form as the devotee demands. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, there's a nice verse actually describing about this. Let's see. In the 4th chapter, text 11, it is said here, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. Mama vatmanu vatante manushapata savasha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. Prabhupada, he said here, everyone is searching for Krishna, in the different aspects of his manifestation. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti effulgence, and as the all-pervading Super Soul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotee. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization. And thus, anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotee in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally, according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshipper. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Some of them who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired result of their prescribed duties as Yageshvara. And those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone. And all kinds of spiritual process are but different degrees of success on the same path. Another interesting point Prabhu he was mentioning in the purport is that he was mentioning a word Suktekshita. Prabhu he said the Suktekshita path is to hear from bona fide devotees who are conversant with Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiments. So it reminds me a few verses in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said here, Shrimvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridyantasto Hyavachani Vitunoti Suhi Satam Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavadi Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tada Rajastamo Bhava Kamaropa Dayaschaye Chitta Etai Anavitam stitam sattve prasiddhati. Evam prasana manaso bhagava bhakti yogataha bhagava tattva vijnanam mukta samga shajayate. Vidyante ritayang gantis chidyante sava samsaya shiyante chasya kamani drishta evat manishvare. Translation to those verses. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the chooseful devotee, cleans his desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who have developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So here again stress the hearing. Hearing is one of the most important service that we can render to Krishna. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental psalms, is established as an irrevocable fact. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effect of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Thus, established in the modes of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Thus, the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fructive actions is terminated when man sees the self as master. So all this is happening through hearing. That's why, Prabhu he said here, the Sutakshita path is to hear from bona fide devotee who are conversant with Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiment. And by this bona fide hearing process, the neophyte devotee becomes cleansed of all material rubbish. And as he becomes attached to one of the many transcendental forms of the Lord, as described in the Vedas. I just stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Mataji? Microphone, please. Just wait for the microphone. Can somebody get the microphone? Because we have some devotees online also. Yeah.
Haribo, Hare Krishna. I am from online, and I want to say with so much gratitude, thank you to all the devotees who do share, and it is through my ear, which has pulled my heart here. I, through your lecture, kind of understand now how if I don't put Krishna on my heart, it will be my own personal desires that lead me, and that doesn't create any fruit in heaven. So, by hearing today's lecture, I can understand that it is through putting Krishna first on my heart that is where I can truly let go of the desires of my outcome, which help put the fruit in heaven, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. Does that sound right?
That's good, yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all.
Yes, such Prabhu.
Thank you. There is in this process of hearing that is so important. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful story of Narada Muni. Narada Muni is one of the great Mahajanas, a great devotee. He's the guru for many other ones in our process. So Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, the one who wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said to his disciple, in my previous life, I was a little child with a mother that for some destiny, she died, something happened, and then he was left alone. But while he was there, his mother at that time was very fond of taking care of the saintly people, and there were many great devotees there who spent some time, and the mother was serving them. And this little child, Narada Muni, was hearing from bona fide, genuine spiritual teachers.
Right.
So much so that when his mother or that little boy died, he became so attached to these saintly people, and he gave up any other material desires. So he's telling that story because he wants us to know, for us, that hearing is so important, but not just from anyone, from saintly people, the Bhakti Vedantas. So then later on he just gave up everything. Everything. He went through the fields, the mountains, the caves, the rivers, looking, where is that Supreme Lord? So much so that at one point in his meditation, the Lord himself came to him and he manifests himself. And suddenly, he just was shocked. The Lord is right in front of him. And suddenly the Lord played a trick on him. He left. He came, and then he left again. And he was more like wild, like, what's this? But then it is mentioned that he just did that, the Lord, just to increase more his desire to look for him more. So it's not like an endless, that's it, just in your meditation, you achieve perfection. There's more and more and more and more. But all this was done due to the strong desire to hear from the sages. So this Prabhu was reading about how important hearing is.
Yes.
And Narada Muni is telling us that we should also be eager to hear from the saintly people.
Right. Ananda Kirana Prabhu.
I have a question from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 21, which is one of the verses you read. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. So it seems like a Mayavadi can kind of twist that verse, or just reading it how it is, sees the self as master. Can you explain what that means? At least what I'm reading here in the Veda base, it's a small s.
Yeah, I got the book in front of me.
The Sanskrit is Atmani, which
Atmani.
Atma.
Yeah.
So whether the translator put a capital S or a lowercase s, the Sanskrit is Atmani.
So you are asking, does the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces? The chain of fruitive action is terminated as one sees the self as master. So, what is your question again, Prabhu?
It seems like someone can misunderstand that verse. The self is master. Does that mean the self is God?
The self is the master. The self, which means the spirit soul. The spirit soul is actually the master of this material body. That's my understanding.
I understand it differently.
Oh yeah, such knowledge, yes.
So, there is a prayer by one devotee, I think Srila Rupa Goswami, where he, at one point, he says, I gave up the service of these masters, mean his unconquerable senses. I was serving them and I was never satisfied. They always give me trouble all the time. And then in his prayer he says, but now, he says, due to your mercy, my Lord, that I have that hope that one day I can give up the service of these masters who are not worthy to be serving. So I become, in one sense, I become the master of those senses through your grace, through your mercy. He was hoping and praying that, what is the use of serving this, like unworthy?
Yes, Prabhu. It's a good point. Yeah.
I've discussed this verse with Dravida, and a lot of devotees have raised that same question. And it's not trying to present some sort of impersonal Mayavadi understanding. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Evam Bude Param Budva Samsab Yatmanam Atmanam Jahi Satram Mahabaho Kama Rupa Durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be superior to the material mind, intelligence, and senses, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and in this way conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. So it's referring to something like that. The self is the master, not, in the sense that when you realize your higher self, then you control your lower self. It's not some impersonal Mayavadi kind of thing that's being presented there.
Right. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Any other thing else? Yes, Mataji?
I would like to expand on that exact statement, because when I hear that it says that when we put Krishna on our lotus heart, does it not say that Krishna surrenders to our desires because our desires are what Krishna desires? And okay, so the impersonal and personal, I appreciate what his question was, because it does kind of, when it says the self is the master, but it says in here that if you have Krishna on your heart, then Krishna will yield to your desires. And so for my understanding is that Krishna loves us so much that Krishna wants the best and highest for our good, our highest self. And when we merge in yoke with the God, then Krishna gives us his will. And so it's not necessarily our will, it's Krishna's will. He's granting our desires. See, I always thought that our desires are not great, but it's our material desires that are not great.
Actually, in today's verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhu, he was saying that
My question is just further commentating on the impersonal and personal relationship, because I agree in the first canto when he says that the self becomes the master, I just hear that as a very personal relationship is when we have so much love for God, we merge, our will becomes one. And it's not that we are God, we are just so yoked with God that God is doing it all for us. And it's never that our self is higher than, we are just being blessed by Krishna to do his power through his will. And that's the way that it's merged and yoked. It seems like a paradox, who's higher, the self or the master. But here it says in the Canto 1 that the self is the master. The only way in my eyes that I can see that is if we are one in love, and there is a mutual bond here, which is the definition of yoga, to yoke. So I just wanted to expand on that and say that my understanding of that is that you can only have that if you completely unite your desires with Krishna, and then Krishna will be your everything. And in that way only can the self be the master, but it is through a subordination and not the impersonalist view of I am God and it is I am who am the master. You could not be without para, the utmost high. That's all.
Are you clear with her question, Maharaj? Are you clear with her questions?
No, I'm not. Thank you.
You fine, understand?
Any further.
So-
I just wanted a clarification of her question. That's all.
I didn't have a question.
Just a comment, right?
You had a comment.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Okay.
That's why Srila Prabhupada he said in the purport that the statement here that the Lord manifests himself before the devotees in the form in which the devotee likes to worship him indicates that the Lord becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotee. So much so that he manifests his particular form as the devotee demands. This demand of the devotee is satisfied by the Lord because he is priorable in terms of the transcendental loving service of the devotee. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Yeya tamam prapatyante tanstatava bhajamyaham. We should note, however, that the Lord is never the order supplier of the devotee. Here in this verse, it is particularly mentioned, Tvam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita. This indicates the efficiency achieved through execution of mature devotional service of Prema, love of Godhead. So this statement of Prema is achieved by gradual process of development from faith to love. On faith, one associates with bona fide devotees, and by such association, one can become engaged in bona fide devotional service, which includes proper initiation and the execution of the primary devotional service prescribed in the revealed scriptures. And then, by continuing devotional service, then the Lord, if the Lord is satisfied with you, then He will reveal to you. Like in the Gita, it is said in the 4th chapter of the 11th verse that then the Lord will reveal to you as your friend or as your parents as your lover, like that, Krishna can reciprocate according to the desire of the devotees. So that's my, understanding. Is that okay?
Yeah, it was just shocking to me to hear it say that Krishna is subordinate to our desires.
Yeah.
But if your free will is to go do something that is very ignorant or passionate, then Krishna no longer is serving your desires. You're serving your desires. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yes, such a noble. You have anything?
There was a story in the Mahabharata,
Mhm.
Krishna book, when Krishna was invited to go to the arena sacrifice to see Kamsa. So when he was walking, varieties of people saw him in different ways. They personally saw him as the Supreme Brahman. Then the cowherd boy saw him as their friend. The mother and father as a little child. So everybody had a special relationship with him, according to their desire. So he manifested himself in that way. They perceived him in that way. And those who were his devotees, they also worshiped him as his supreme Lord when they saw Krishna coming. So everybody saw him in different way. Not everybody sees him exactly the same. It's according to your level of, you can see the relationship that you have with him.
It's called rasa.
Yeah, Prabhupada said it's called Swarup Rasa. Yeah, Swarup Siddhi, yes. Actually, all the living souls, they actually have eternal relationship with Krishna. They have a particular relationship with Krishna. But right now, we cannot understand our relationship with Krishna. But by the practice of this devotional service, then slowly, we will realize that, Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much for coming. Gantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Hari Boli.